Jerry. Okay, Jerry White, Spokane, Washington, sitting outside the YMCA, getting ready to swim or just finished swimming. So he's going to share his amazing redox journey. Thank you, Jerry.
Hi, everybody. I, like you, had never heard of this kind of thing before. I knew the type of marketing that would try to get something unknown to a market in the world. I was started out in my working world as a coach, and then went to the Shriners Hospital as a physical therapist, and got an opportunity to experience some really interesting things in science. And through that process, science and medical, I was able to start a business that worked off of some of the things that I had done in my physical therapy practice. They had to do with energy and how the energy of magnetic fields and various electrical currents and so forth were working with my patients who were amputees, and they had a condition called phantom limb pain. And so through that process, I discovered that there were things that worked on the human body that were outside the normal channels of medicine or of training and fitness and all that sort of stuff. And then as a result of that, got a sort of a reputation for knowing some really cutting edge stuff. Well, at the same time, as many of you know, we aren't necessarily just what we do for a living. And I was a husband and a dad. I had 4 kids, and I spent too much time at work. So my son came to me with tears in his eyes one day at 9 years old and said, "Dad, why is it that you can go to that hospital and play with everyone else's kids, and if you ever come home, there's no time for us?" Well, that was a crisis for me. I was working so hard because my dad went bankrupt when we were growing up. And when he went bankrupt, he lost his family, he lost his car, his house, his wife, and all kinds of stuff. And I think subconsciously in the back of my mind was that I had to work harder. I had to give up more to society so that I wouldn't end up in those situations. But the problem was I was neglecting the people that mattered most in my life. Then a third thing happened, and a friend of mine discovered this thing called redox. She had been I had worked with her and helped to train her in another method or another company. And she called me one day and said, "I've run across this stuff made from salt and water from Salt Lake City." And she said, "It's astounding who's putting it out and what they're saying it will do, but I don't know if I can believe it." So she and her friend, who now happen to be the number 1 and number 2 highest paid people in this company, had just come out of the door with talking to these people about this new technology. And I said, "Well, you already know that I've worked on salt and water before." And I said, "I'm pretty sure we know everything about how salt and water works." They said, "But would you fly down to Salt Lake City and talk to some of these operatives that are putting this thing together and tell us if what we're seeing is real?" Well, I'll tell you, I had to confess that I didn't have enough money to drive to the airport, let alone fly down there. And they said, "No, actually the company was asking me to go down on their nickel so I could take a look at the science, because as a favor for these 2 gals." When I got there, I heard some of the most remarkable things that began to really trick some triggers in my head about things we didn't know yet. I was astounded, but I was committed. I was committed in life to things that were too inefficient. I had really set my sights and goals on helping 1 or 2 patients at a time And the group of people that I had set up in a business that I was running, that I was so devoted to, that but was drowning. It was basically sinking. And I was going to put my heart and soul into trying to save that thing. It had been for 4, 5, 6 years, on top of what I was already doing clinically. And again, my time was too valuable. So I kind of kicked along with it, said, I'm not going to be involved. I'm not going to be involved. I'm not going to be involved. And then my daughter was getting ready to go off to college, but she had three conditions that were, one of them is a healthcare issue that would last for at least 6 months, sleeping all day long, no energy. She had to get over it. On top of that, she had one that made her throat so sore she couldn't swallow, and she had this infection along with it. And then a third one was that she had sinuses that were impacted and green and all that. And she was so worn out, she couldn't even lift her head off the pillow. So we took this new technology that had I had been given a couple of bottles of it, and I was using it athletically because of my background in coaching. And as all the years that I'd been in athletics, my wife and I are triathletes, even in our 60s now. And I thought, this is really interesting stuff, because the repeats that I was doing athletically, the 100-yard swims, that were kind of a hallmark that measured how well I was doing and how fit I was, etc. And all of a sudden, I started dropping about 4 seconds per 100, which is astounding at my age. And the weird thing was my heart rate was going down. So I was totally interested in that from a fitness and physiology standpoint, but I still wasn't able to make up in my mind that it was worth moving what I was doing to something else. I did not know the answers to how to become more time efficient. So my daughter's sickness was really compelling, because we were going to hop in the car and drive 1,000 miles from Spokane, Washington, through the High Sierra Nevada mountains in California, to a family reunion, then off to school for her. But she wasn't even able to sit up. So we took the ASEA, and my wife pulled it out of the closet. She said, you didn't think I knew it was over here, but I see you trying to hide this stuff behind your socks. So let's find out. She gave it to my daughter, and within 6 or 7 hours, she was able to lift her head up. By morning, she actually walked out to the mailbox and back. In fact, it was such a big deal to the family that we had people lining both sides of the sidewalk, cheering for her in the hopes that she could be well enough to actually start thinking about going to college in 2 days. To our amazement, by the next morning when she woke up, she was 90% better. We got everything ready to go, hopped in the car, and she was doing very well. And she kept drinking the ASEA. Got to the family reunion. She was happily enjoying all the stuff on the lake in California, and she had stopped taking it. Within 12 hours, she was back down on her face, just completely wasted. So we put her back on it, and by morning, she was up and ready to go. We took her off to college, got her started, and she never had another problem. So it was pretty astounding, and my wife turned to me and said, what are you doing? This stuff is so seriously effective and has worked for both your fitness stuff and your daughter, and your other adventures are killing the family. What are you waiting for? Well, that's kind of what I was waiting for, was permission. So I got together with a friend of mine in Texas there, Terry Latham, and we had been looking for a long time for solutions to try to find a way to get back to our families, to put together something that would give us a base from which we could, in my case, I was 58 years old when I first ran into this, to be able to make up for a lifetime lost on being able to retire or put some time into the family stuff. And so all these things are in my mind. I talked to Terry. He captured the imagination of this. Through that process, we made an immediate decision to change the direction we were working on in the other company. It was failing, and we'd been trying to keep it too long. So we just got together and counted down to 3, sent in a resignation letter with our other company, and saw so much faith in this that we gave up my entire full income. By that point, was based on this other company, and believed that this was going to take us into the future. The strange thing was, it was starting to work on things that I would never have imagined. My wife, who, as I mentioned, we met as coaches, and she was a world-class swimmer, but later in life wanted to start doing triathlons. She was only able in the short 3-mile runs on the short little sprint triathlons to go maybe a block and a half, and she'd have to walk. She'd be wheezing, her lungs would be locked up. And she started to improve. And she had started to improve fairly rapidly. And then another issue came along. My son stuck his hand in a table saw. Well, you can well imagine what happened there. Tore his fingers, ripped the saw blade up through both of these fingers, through his fingernails and across the joints, broke the bone, all kinds of stuff. And he's standing in the kitchen bleeding all over the place. And my wife pulls this stuff out and pours it over his fingers. And the results were so astounding. It was compelling. We had to get this out into the marketplace. So we made a pact with each other that we would go out and try to teach people to do these things without a lot of knowledge, without a lot of background, and to empower other people to overcome some of the things they were in need of. I was in need of time. I was in need of a retirement program. He was in need of enough financial resources to take care of his young family. So we said, let's do this. Through that process now, the number one distribution center in the world is you all in Texas. And it started through that collaboration. It led through various people with various ideas and needs and conditions, and said, let's bond together. And we said, here's the thing. It doesn't take very much to put ourselves in a position where we could get the products and make them pay for themselves. That was kind of our first initial desire. We did that in about a week. We started introducing it to a number of people as experiments, and friends that we had that really had a need for it. And we started to build our belief system. So then we talked to other friends about, let's start this up with a minimal cost. For most of them, it was less than the cost of what it would take me to get a new set of tires. And lo and behold, within literally just about a month and a half, we were able to match what I was making in the other company. And it took off from there. By then, we began to find out that when you gather a group of people together, each one asking them to be just genuinely who they are, and asking them, if you got some stuff that falls short in the quality of your life, let's gather together and figure out how to get you stable and safe and move on toward being independent and happy. Once we got those people started, we said, let's continue to talk to other people about the same thing. And we got more and more and more. And today we have thousands, literally tens of thousands of people in more than 24 different countries around the world. And it's astounding to me, because I've never considered myself to be a businessman under any circumstances. What I knew was I was a coach. I knew that I could do the physical therapy stuff. I was running a laboratory. I was teaching orthopedic surgeons. in biomechanics, physiology, and neuroanatomy, but I could not make a living for myself. And I needed to have that validation within my own heart that I could stand up in this world and provide for my family and be done. So just in closing here, I set up a series of 5 things that we decided in our family that if we got this last shot, these would be the things we wanted. Number 1, we wanted to live an amazing life full of adventure and gratitude to God. Number 2, with a group of people that we love and care about. Number 3, making a much bigger difference together than we could ever make by ourselves. Number 4 was to live a life of justice, giving credit and rewards to those who earned it, and not those who were the most vocal, but the ones who really earned it. And finally, to make enough money to be done with money so that when the things that came along that mattered most in life, time and money were no object. Well, we've now got all of those things, and it's time for us to turn around and pass it off to the next generation, which is you. So I'm glad you're here taking a look at it. That's kind of our story. So Jim, back to you, or questions if you like.
I've never heard that whole story like that, Jerry, ever. Jerry, with the new people that are listening now into the recording, what would you tell a new person to do? How would you advise them to get going?
I think the biggest question to ask yourself is, how's your life working? If you see that there's something that, and you can look at it from a number of different ways. So for some of you, you may just be underwater, you're drowning. You need to be able to grab onto something and find something stable in your health, in the health of the people that you love, in the work that you do, and the hope or the potential that you have for the future. Once you accomplish that, we can start working on all kinds of different things. And other people might say, I really want to make a much bigger difference with what I do. Others are just incredibly curious. From a scientific standpoint, this was the most incredible information I had ever received, and it worked by just trying it. So I would recommend to people to get some and try it on people. We can teach you how to test people in a matter of seconds on a lot of these things to see that, holy smokes, this works. And then I would say, ask yourself, what are you built for? What are you here for? Are you on track to do what you were really uniquely designed in the world to do, to become what you could become? And if not, look deeply into this collaboration, working with a bunch of other people. Our world right now is trying to make us all separate and to believe that there's boogeymans out there, that we don't really individually matter so much. That's horrible for human beings. What we want to do is to gather together, to share in the growth and development and love of your families, to if it takes a village to raise a child, let's create the villages for us to be able to do that, to be able to step away from the mundane or the things where we're being controlled by somebody else's desires and work towards saying, I want the strength and knowledge, capability, and the wherewithal to be able to do something that says, on my family, we're standing on our own 2 feet. In my family, we're accomplishing what we were here in this world to do. And there's time for me to pass on those belief systems to the ones in my house that I love and care about, instead of being too far away too often and letting the world kind of direct them in a place that's not what my wife and I really wanted to do. So I'd say just check where you are, see if it's where you want to be. If not, holy smokes, is this an option? So we would like to have you consider that.
One last thing real quick, Jerry, your experience down in the Dominican Republic when you were sharing the molecules, the Renew 28 gel, can you just kind of share that real quick on, because that's what I try to teach people to do, is to go out and give people an experience.
Well, I love that point. For most of us, we have to we have to really, 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 really believe in what we're doing. Well, first off, believe in yourself. Once you believe in yourself, then say, I can learn how to do certain things. And there's a few certain things that they can train you there to do tonight where you could take a tube of gel and do what I did down in Dominican Republic. I don't speak Spanish very well, maybe 8 words. And I was there for only 72 hours. In the last 36 hours, we chose to try to help the people I was introducing it to start a country. Said, let's find people that we can measure something that is restricted or hurts, doesn't move as well as it should, or balance problems, and test them. Real simple test, they'll show you there. And then have them apply this technology to themselves and then test them again. On the number, let's say pain scale, 0 to 10. What just happened? Test them again on movement. And as a physical therapist, I used to do that every day, all day long. And all of a sudden, I began to find that on 41 people in that 36-hour period, every one of them had such a profound experience. They either turned around and told someone or said, you have got to try that again. I don't believe it. That we do it again, or we do it again, or we do it in a different way. And every once in a while, I like to just grab some new person and say, let's go to a pickup basketball game. Let's go to the ladies auxiliary. Let's go someplace where we can find people that we could just say, I don't know, try it. Let's see what happens. So we can build our belief, but also the belief of the people around us. So I'd say try that. It's the quickest way to get the experiences.
Well, Jerry White, thank you so much.